Previously on Friends of Tigray. CEO and founder of United Medical, Kamal Erkin, and president and co-founder of CRIAS, Dr. Isaias Irgao, speak on the issues of Abiy Ahmed and the conflicts he has created for the people of Tigray. In the last episode, they cover Abiy Ahmed's Prosperity Party, election suspension, peace treaty confusion. They hear what Chris Coons has to say on the subject, and they dive into Abiy Ahmed's sense of humanity.
Here to discuss the crisis in Tigray region in Ethiopia.
This war is not only devastating, but it has been conducted in total darkness.
Everyone should have a voice, and this person is real.
Losing their parents losing their children at the hands of their own government. And we cannot stand by and watch what's happening in Tigray right now without doing anything.
Coming up on today's episode, Ethiopian patriarch speaks out. Is the peace treaty really a war pact? Nobel Peace Prize free pass to commit war? Does the Nobel Peace Prize Committee have ties with Jeffrey Epstein? Does the Nobel Peace Prize Committee need to disband?
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So this is Friends of Tigray of Delaware. My name is Kamal Erkin. Today is May 30th, 2021. It's a rainy Sunday in Delaware, United States. I have Dr. Isaias Irgao with me. We are going to discuss our one of our topics that we've been discussing in the last several months. We get so many people who are actually reaching out to us. Just before I ask Dr. Irgao to introduce himself, I just want to give a little bit background on myself on this, in case you didn't watch the prior videos. I run a healthcare company, mainly focusing on population health. I have no political interest in Ethiopia or Tigray or in Africa or Turkey or United States. So we are here. I'm here mainly because of my friendship with Dr. Irgao, and my goal is to support him and his family and his people back in Tigray. And that's my only focus and my only motivation for these events. So that's why we are here. So Dr. Irgao, if you can please also introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kamal. Very much appreciated. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Irgao. I am a surgeon by profession. I am from Tigray originally. I went to medical school in England at the University of Bristol. After completing medical school, I came to the United States to do surgical training. And for the last 20 some years, I have been practicing surgery, focusing on minimally invasive surgery. So that's my professional life. Over the last almost 7 months now, my life has been consumed by the tragic events that are occurring in Tigray, where I still have family members. You may have heard from the previous sessions that the situation there is extremely dire. A tragedy of biblical proportions is unfolding in the Horn of Africa in Tigray. A population of 6 million have been locked, and they are being collectively punished by the government of Ethiopia, the government of Eritrea, and militias from neighboring state of Amhara, purely because they are ethnically Tigrayans. The reports that are coming out of killings, massacres, sexual violence, displacement of people, and more recently, actively blocking aid from reaching people who are in dire need of food, where the risk of famine is rising every day. These reports are horrendous. It is fairly unique in this day and age to see armed groups blocking food aid from reaching people who are starving. That's what's happening in Tigray right now. And that's why Kamal and I are here this afternoon to talk about the situation in Tigray.
So thank you, Dr. Guy. I was just texting a couple of our friends to get the confirmation, and they said that they can hear us well. And many people are actually watching these. We have since actually, I'm trying to remember when the first session was. I think was it in January, right?
I believe so. I believe so. Yeah.
So this started in November, at least what we know. It started in November. Our goal for these sessions, me personally did not have much knowledge in the region, didn't know what the dynamics were. A lot of education for all of us. But for me, I think what I was again and again seeing is maybe the double standard, maybe the hypocrisy of, in some cases, unfortunately, the Western world. Sometimes we actually witness these in our businesses, in our personal lives, living in the United States. In some cases, we consider ourselves lucky, but there are cases where this may not be necessarily just a pure luck, but also a lot of efforts from our side. One is being the transparency, and sometimes how lucky we are that we don't know because certain things are given. Some of these issues I did maybe experience or witness back home in Turkey. The freedom of speech on and off used to be an issue. A strong army managing or controlling the public used to be an issue. And these are, we understand that these are going to go, we are going to go through these and hoping that we'll be able to, in Ethiopia and Tigray, the region will find peace. But I think our main issue is right now people are dying. This is session 5 after 5 months almost. This started 7 months ago. And millions of people displaced. They lost their homes, they lost their families, they're being raped. And this is all happening in front of us. So at what point someone is going to say stop? Now, we actually approach this issue in so many different ways. I do want to give some news headlines from recent stuff. So I tried to put them in this PowerPoint. Let's see if I can actually do a good job for you guys to kind of see what's happening. So these are all in the news. Now, Dr. Who's this guy? I saw him before.
So he is the head of the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian Church. That's the largest Christian church in Ethiopia. He's the patriarch. And he spoke recently through a message recorded secretly on a smartphone, calling on the people of the world to know that genocide is occurring in Tigray. He had to send his message through that secret recording because the government of Ethiopia has literally muffled him, have forbidden him from bringing his voice to the public, ahead of the church. Now, since his message came out, there has been more attention, obviously, to the tragedy in Tigray. But that's why we see him in the headlines, because his voice came out and he spoke about the tragedy through which millions of people in Tigray are going at the hands of their own government, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, helped by the Eritrean dictator, Isaias Afwerki, who has held hostage the Eritrean people for decades. And now obviously he's extending his dictatorship on to Ethiopia by sending his army to Tigray, obviously helped by the Ethiopian Prime Minister. And this obviously brings us to the topic of...
I think we are back live.
We're back live, perfect. So what I was saying essentially is that in today's topic, what we want to talk about is the fact that the Ethiopian Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed Ali, who is the head of the government that is conducting this, what many have called genocidal war on the people of Tigray. He is actually the recipient of a Nobel Peace Prize. Not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, but less than a year before the start of this war. So Abiy Ahmed was given the Nobel Peace Prize in December of 2019, and he declared the start of this war in November of 2020. So in less than 11 months since receiving the award at the Oslo ceremony for peace, he started this war against his own people. So today, what we want to obviously raise is, where is the Nobel Peace Prize Committee when this tragedy is unfolding in Tigray? Why are they quiet? Why are they not telling us what a huge blunder it is that one of their laureates is conducting such an unpeaceful act upon 6 million people?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So
that's the issue we would like to explore.
From the news standpoint, Biden administration plans, this already started, I believe, the visa restriction for government officials. Now, this is a big step, but it's not enough.
It's not, Kamal. Of course, this is extremely important because the Biden administration essentially is sending a signal that what they set out to do as a part of their foreign policy, which is to uphold human rights wherever they are trampled in the world, they are going to raise their voice, and they are doing that. And to their credit, of course, our senator from Delaware was the envoy for President Biden, going to Addis Ababa and also to Khartoum to try to be an emissary to President Biden and to take his message to the leader of Ethiopia. And we've seen a special envoy from the United States traveling to the area as well more recently. So this engagement is very important and very good. However, Eritrean troops that were supposed to have withdrawn over a month ago, they are still in Tigray. They are still conducting their massive military operation at the expense of the population. They are still blocking the roads so that food aid does not reach the people who need it. They are preventing farmers to start planting for next year's harvest, which means that if they don't plant now, before the rains start, then there will not be any harvest next year. So not only are they dying now because they don't have food, but the ones who are eating now will not have food next year. So they are really constructing famine. They are building famine actively with their actions, right? And this cannot be stopped just by words of condemnation, Kamal, right? More needs to be done. And that's exactly, you're absolutely right. More needs to be done for this to stop. Not next year, not the year after when people have perished, but now.
The other thing that we see here is, now this is from Al Jazeera, and Ethiopia already acknowledges some of these rape allegations, right? So this is, it's just maybe very symbolic, but there's only three soldiers of Ethiopia being convicted. What we have been saying is it's happening. It's not some Netflix show. It's not some YouTuber video. These are, as we speak right now, there are someone being raped, someone being killed. Now, this is another issue, which when I was looking at these numbers in the first, I think in this month, I believe, displacement is 5 times more than the entire 2020. So these are real people. Like, is this a real, like a common scene, Dr. in Ethiopia?
So absolutely. Remember, that is the region of Tigray has 6 million people, right? And they have no outlet. From the south, they are being blocked by the Ethiopian government and by the Amhara militia. From the north, the whole of the Eritrean border is the northern part of Tigray. They have nowhere to go. And the route to the Sudan, which is a small corridor on the west, that is being blocked by the Eritrean and Ethiopian forces as well. So in a sense, they have created a huge concentration camp where no food, no medical aid can get in. It is extremely difficult for aid workers to go and work among the population in Tigray, right? So in some areas on the western of Tigray, they have displaced up to 1.5 million to 2 million people who are now crowded in the urban centers of Tigray, where there are huge shortages of all of those essentials. That's why this is really a catastrophe of biblical proportions, Kamal, and we're not hearing much about it.
So, Dr. Rida, you and I, we met last night. That was our weekly meeting. 80% of the time we speak on our businesses, but last night we spent more than half of the time for this issue, and we decided, it was yesterday afternoon, I believe, we decided that we needed to have another session. And what I wanted us to kind of focus on is, when we spoke last night, it kind of became very clear to us. This person, Abiy Ahmed. Mm-hmm. He's about my age, by the way. I think
right.
That's kind of scary. There's an oak tree behind my house, and then the people who take care of the garden wants to take it down because it's apparently dying. And then we tell them, well, hold on a minute, let's just reassess and get a second opinion. And this guy, who's also my age, is killing people every day. Mm-hmm. Now, he has a very interesting story. And some of these things that we are sharing, Wikipedia and any other main media channels, you can actually find them. But I think even for me, until I read these, I didn't actually know. It's a really interesting story because this guy was a child soldier, according to Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now, child soldier. So for Americans, I don't know if that means much, but if you are from Africa, this is also very common, right? Common in a bad way. Like, we are not saying that this is common. It's not normal, but this guy was a child soldier. His mental health is, I do not believe that is there, because if he killed people at the age 14, then if he's capable of doing that, for him, this is very normal, what he's doing. We want to point this out in a very clear way, but even more disappointing, he actually got a really good sponsor. Mm-hmm. I call it sponsor. In the old sessions, prior sessions, I called it certified. He was certified. But now, actually, I'm going to take that to a different, different level. I think he's being sponsored, at least on the surface, by Nobel Peace Prize Committee members. Why? Because he's the Nobel winner of 2019.
Yep.
So a child soldier who was part of the Tigray army for a long time, like he was part of the army, right? Not just the Ethiopian army, he was in the Tigray TPLF army, and he was part of the Secret Service, I believe. He was never elected for this position, and yet he was awarded with Nobel Peace Prize. Now, Dr. Rida did a little bit more reading than I did. So we want to actually share this lady with you. So Dr. Rida, I forgot her name, but I talked to her through LinkedIn, and she's a very pleasant person. She answered me very quickly, and you and I, we emailed her a couple of times. Who is she again?
Yeah, just before I go there, Kamal, let me just make one clarification. So Abiy Ahmed was in the Ethiopian army. He was an intelligence officer. He was not part of the TPLF, but he was part of the Ethiopian army that was stationed in Tigray at some point. But you're absolutely right. He came up as a leader without being elected. So he has not been elected by a single vote throughout his tenure as a prime minister. Now, going back to Ms. Turretini, she is the author of this very interesting book entitled Betraying the Nobel, The Secrets and Corruption Behind the Nobel Peace Prize. And essentially, Ms. Turretini very, very clearly takes you through the history of the Nobel Peace Prize and the many, many blunders that have occurred throughout many years in which people have been given the prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, with very questionable qualifications when you look at the criteria that Alfred Nobel himself set out as to who should be getting a prize on his behalf, right? Very interestingly, Kamal, she does mention that the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize was won by Abiy Ahmed, but she does not say much about it because her book was published literally as the war in Tigray was starting. In fact, her book was published on November 3rd, 2020, and Abiy Ahmed started the war in Tigray on November 4, 2020. So she didn't have much a chance, obviously, to evaluate him as one of the many blunders of the Nobel Committee. But clearly, if you read the history of the prize, the way she presents it, obviously the pattern is again there. What, however, is very different, Kamal, about the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize, it's not so much that when you look at Abiy Ahmed, really is far from being a candidate for that prestigious prize. What really transpires is that the Nobel Committee did not do adequate research to see whether the reason he was given the prize was actually a peace deal. In fact, you are showing really the title of a recent article, Kamal, that was published in Norway by Professor Tronvoll, who is a very well-known academician in international relations. And in this piece that he published actually a few days ago in Norway, Professor Tronvoll argues that the Nobel Committee, the 5 members of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, should actually resign. The magnitude of their decision and the implications of their decision when they gave the prize to Abiy Ahmed is such that Professor Tronvoll suggests that they should resign. And you and I also agree with that position, Kamal. In fact, we have sent a letter to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee on behalf of Friends of Tigray in Delaware, arguing that those members of the Nobel Committee, among the 5 members who voted to give Abiy Ahmed the Nobel Peace Prize, should reconsider their position, and the right thing to do would probably for them to really disassociate themselves from that institution. And the reason is very clear again. The Nobel Committee just announced in October of 2019 that they were going to confer the prize to Abiy Ahmed because of the peace treaty that he had completed with Eritrea. Mm-hmm. On the surface, this looks like a very, an award that is very appropriate, right? What the Nobel Committee or the Nobel Institute that supports that committee has failed to understand is that the peace treaty that Abiy Ahmed concluded with the Eritrean dictator was in fact a war pact, right? In fact, if you look at the final treaty that was signed in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, mm-hmm. in 2018, there is very little specificity. The peace treaty itself was never really reviewed or approved by the governments, by the parliament of either country. I don't think Eritrea has a parliament anyway, but at least the Ethiopian parliament never looked, reviewed, or approved that peace treaty.
Dr. Right? I just want to make sure that we kind of discuss this a little bit differently, because everyone who's watching this, they probably already know what this committee does, the Nobel. There are 5 areas they are giving awards every year, right? So Now the Peace Award is receiving a diploma from Nobel, the medal, and then about $1 million US.
Right.
So, now maybe other people knew, but I didn't know that they were also receiving $1 million. So I will nominate you for next year. Or maybe they will nominate us for next year. So then, because we probably have done more for the peace in that region than this schmuck did. So the problem with this is they are sponsoring someone, because Nobel, is it important? Yes. Like it's a prestigious award. So at least the perception is. Many people know this as, okay, well, if you have that, that means if you are a writer and if you receive that, oh, yeah, okay, so this is a good writer. That's the sponsorship. So, I was telling you this last night. I don't remember if you agreed with me or not, but if, let's say, Serena Williams does something bad as a professional athlete, and if Nike or Lacoste or one of these guys are her sponsors, they would drop her out right away from sponsorship, right? So now Nobel's position is so interesting, but then as we get to know more about them and how the process is working, we realize that they're not that clean. Now, just recently came out about Bill Gates, his connection to Nobel Peace Prize Committee, Jeffrey Epstein connection. And what we realize is that, what this reminds me of, Africa, is like the old boys club. Like you and I, we actually experience this in our businesses with the hospital administrations. Sometimes like they kind of have their own favorite white boys, and they just like them to be in certain positions. And if you are Black, or if you are Muslim, or if you are Turkish, you'll never be considered for those positions. But if you're a former college football player and who's supposed to become somehow become a doctor, you are the best candidate for some of these chief positions. Or the guy who's just done the surgical residence is able to lead the chief of surgery department. So it kind of reminds me of some of those. Now let's look at it a little bit closely, and what we are talking about with a couple of the images that I want to share. Like this is where this guy is receiving it, and then, but what we also know is just recently one of the Nobel Prize Committee members has a sex assault scandal. So now you would expect this group to be very clean, very like pure, because they are actually certifying other people in certain categories. And then when this happens, like God forbid if this happens to Erdogan, then the entire world would go after him. But they are kind of immune to these. They are like, nothing happens to them. Now, this just came out. Bill Gates hopes his friendship with sex offender Jeff Epstein will help him to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, this guy is either died or killed in jail, and this guy is alive, and he's divorcing his wife of 30 years. And the main thing is coming to the child sex assaults, and they have something in common, these two. And then this guy is certifying them. But many people don't read these. And then what we see is, what they are saying is that, yes, this guy says, I met this person, Jeff Epstein. He's not saying that he didn't meet. If Jeff Epstein is there, if he's the one who's opening the doors for people, I think this institution should be shut down. Now, here's the Bill Gates news details. Okay, now, I don't know how many people actually read these, because we normally don't read certain things unless we are searching for, but this is real. This happened. Well, if Bill Gates didn't do it, he should go after them. right? He's the most powerful man in the world. So this is everywhere. I didn't make this news. This is everywhere. So this is another channel from Insider. So, these are everywhere. I didn't find these from like some little news channels. These are big news channels, and they are covering this in this way. Now, can they associate themselves with a person like Jeffrey Epstein? And then this is not just with Bill Gates. So there are so many other people who are guilty of this. But then when they are connecting and associating themselves with the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, then I think we are in trouble. So this is another day, another news. So now, here's where they are saying that this is what they say about this issue. And let's see, there was something else with them. Dr. Riga, you and you probably didn't see these unless if we were searching for them, right? Now, this is interesting, Dr. Riga. I don't think I showed you this because I saw this morning. I do have, this is really interesting, at least from my side. So this is the award record of our guy, Abiy Ahmed, mentally challenged. So his first one is from Uganda. Now, part of the issue that I have is his second, maybe important one is from UAE, right? Then here's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So, and then we know that these two have a different interest in that region.
Certainly.
Now, and then he is the 100 most influential people in 2018. A good publicity, right? And then it takes him to the 2019, it's cut off here, but Nobel here.
Yeah. So that's it, Kamal. So essentially, when we look at all those prizes, and of course the Nobel Peace Prize, what we see is that an aura is building around this person that makes him untouchable in a way, right? So that not only he himself feels that whatever he's doing does not require any accountability, but also the world will react in a very slow fashion, even when there are atrocities like the ones that are happening in Tigray. And that's precisely our point with regards to the Nobel Peace Prize for him for 2019. What we're saying essentially is, have there been more lives lost in Tigray because Abiy Ahmed had the aura of the Nobel Peace Prize around him when he went to war in Tigray? In other words, if the Nobel Committee had stayed away from the Ethiopia-Eritrea peace treaty, would we have seen this degree of indifference from the world towards the tragedy that is afflicting the people of Tigray? That's a legitimate question for any civilian in Tigray that is suffering right now to ask themselves, to say, why is the world not coming to our aid soon enough? Is it because the words of the leader of our country are being believed more than our plight because he was given the Nobel Peace Prize? In other words, was the Nobel Peace Prize a free pass for this prime minister to do what he's doing to the people of Tigray at the moment? That's a legitimate question. And I think all the 5 members of the Nobel Committee should reassess their position based on that question, Kamal. The timing, as I mentioned earlier on, is extremely eerie if you look at it, right? In October of 2018 or 2019, the Nobel Committee announces that he will be the recipient of the prize. In December of 2019, Mr. Abiy travels to Oslo to receive the prize. And he makes a speech there that peace is his mission. Within 11 months, he starts a war that he could have averted very, very easily. And somebody who's been given the Peace Prize by the Nobel Committee, you would think would be eminently qualified to find every option possible to stop a war. And yet he decides to go ahead, not only to go ahead, but to go ahead in such a cruel fashion as to suffocate 6 million people. Now, when all this was happening, internet communication was completely cut off. Media were not present, so that the torture of the 6 million of people of Tigray under Abiy Ahmed and his ally, the dictator of Eritrea, was occurring in total darkness. The world was not aware. So for a Nobel laureate within 11 months to act so brazenly, right, against his own population, it really takes assurance on his side that he's untouchable because he has this prize on his side.
Well, the internet shutdown became the norm in under his.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So,
it does.
Well, isn't it kind of ironic, Dr. Rigal? Like, he came with these promises of freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of press, and then he's the one who's shutting down the internet. And this started before the Tigray conflict.
Absolutely, you're right. You're right. In fact, he put in prison all the potential political activists, whether in the Oromo region or others, that could have legitimized his position if he had gone ahead with elections, right? But now all of them are in jail or have been killed. Mm-hmm. But going back again to that peace treaty, right? Come on, they told us that they gave him the prize because he made peace with Eritrea. Now, when you make peace with another country, if you were following the Nobel ideals, you are making peace so that there is no possibility for war. You are making peace so that the peoples of the two countries would become close again in brotherhood, right? Mm-hmm. But when you are making peace between two parties at the exclusion of a third party, right? When you are making peace really with the goal of marginalizing a third party, then you have to be suspicious. And that's what we have not seen from the Nobel Committee. They have not really analyzed the situation in depth to understand that the coming close of the Eritrean dictator and the Ethiopian prime minister had other goals. Their goal was really to suppress any type of opposition that could come from Tigray, specifically from the TPLF. In fact, Kamal, if you see the stipulations of the peace treaty, all the stipulations that were put in practice with that peace treaty, all of them helped the preparation of the war. For instance, immediately after the peace treaty, sanctions that were imposed on Eritrea on importing military hardware were lifted. Those sanctions were lifted, so Eritrea went immediately to shop for armaments, right? The Eritrean troops were supposed to withdraw from the border from Tigray. They never withdrew. The Eritrean army was supposed to be demobilized. It never got demobilized, right? So all those steps that would have occurred and the Nobel Institute had a chance to look at them to see if they were occurring, they didn't occur. Mm-hmm. More tragically, Kamal, there were about 100,000 Eritrean refugees in Tigray, people who took risk of their own life to escape through the border from Eritrea, to escape the dictator, and they were held as refugees, they were hosted as refugees within Tigray, right? When the Nobel Committee decided to put its stamp of approval on the peace treaty between those two leaders, did they think what was going to happen to those refugees if the Eritrean army was to enter Tigray? Well, the Eritrean army did enter Tigray, and the first thing they did was they went straight to those refugee camps. They dismantled them, and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, who has a list of refugees in the camps, right, is telling us that about 20,000 of those refugees are unaccountable right now, right? In other words, the host country, Prime Minister Abiy, let the government from which those refugees were escaping and running away to enter into those refugee camps. and apprehend those refugees, and some of them were sent and repatriated by force to Eritrea. This is what the Nobel Peace Prize approval has led to. Come on, right? There was a very interesting piece, of an article that said that the Nobel, the peace treaty between Eritrea and Ethiopia is a peace treaty that really gave birth to a devastating war in Tigray. So that peace that occurred between Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea was the cause of instability, was the cause of more war, not peace. So the Nobel Committee really need to reassess.
Dr. I have zero doubt in my mind, zero, that this was a planned action. He knew what he was doing. What I said earlier, he was part of the Tigray army, and thank you for correcting that. But what confused me is he was, because the army of Ethiopia is like so many people there, he was in that army with Tigray.
Yes, he was stationed in Tigray, absolutely.
Tigray generals, right?
Under their command,
so
absolutely.
I think there is a personal agenda here, and many people, hopefully, they understand this is not something that, well, Tigray did this, Tigray did that, that's why we are doing it. It was already planned. Now, if you remember what I shared with you, the article from 2016 on Global Research website, and I do want to also thank one of the journalists. She was one of the most best-known journalists, independent journalists, Banu. No, because we are lying, you know how I am with the names.
No, I do remember her very well, actually. You telling me about
so let's make sure that Banu Awar is someone who actually helped me with some of the articles, and I went to the 2016 papers, and then we saw that there are, that's why I want to highlight the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. So then they have a specific interest, special interest in this, and they are most likely part of this. And again, the irony is that we live this in different places. We see this in different issues too. Like when you look at the biggest importer of the weapons, it's Saudi Arabia. Who's selling them is us. So, and Saudi Arabia is the most radical Islamic country with little, almost none human rights, especially with women. And then yet they're our best customers. So I just say that way just because there's no other way to explain this. So the countries are like the corporates. So we need to kind of maybe see it in that way, because this guy is like, I just read his whole life story just once again. Definitely he needs mental help. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you cannot be a child soldier and be healthy today. There's no way, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you're a physician, Dr. Gao. You know this. Although behavioral health is my specialty, but so this guy he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he got to this point, and now it's time to just the long lasting animosity to Tigray, TPLF. This guy is just taking his revenge, and then he's using his Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel Peace people are just not smart enough, or they're very smart that they do this. Because like, going back to the Old Boys Club, what's the problem with the Old Boys Club? Many people, if they're watching from the other parts of the world, they may not know the term. Do you want to explain that? What we mean by Old Boys Club?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So essentially, there is a lot of secretive dealings going on really at higher levels, right? I mean, you mentioned, for instance, that there was potentially a meeting where, the Nobel Committee was approached by somebody on another person's behalf, right? So which means that are these prizes being handed out really to uphold the wishes and principles that were outlined on the will of Alfred Nobel, back in 1895, or are there other reasons, right? And even if there are suspicions to this level, I think the Norwegian parliament, which is responsible for appointing the Nobel Committee members for the Peace Prize, should really relook at this whole issue, right? And perhaps ask the current members to resign and reappoint a new team, as Professor Tronvoll really suggested in his article that I mentioned earlier on, because there are too many suspicions, right? This type of prize has to be completely free from any potential stains, let alone a tragedy that approaches the definition of genocide, which is what is happening in Tigray right now, right? So again, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to mention, and this was, I personally do criticize President Erdogan, President of Turkey, time to time, but I also give him credit when he deserves it. So, and in this case, he does. So I think one of the reasons that he gets in trouble is because he's going against this establishment all the time. We do see this with United Nations. United Nations has 5 members, permanent members, and without those 5 members, with any of those, nothing can happen. And so now he goes against that. Well, last person who went against that is the Libyan guy, Gaddafi, right? And then he was killed. Now I'm actually worried about that, because people are going, anyone who goes against that type of establishment gets in trouble. But this is what he said for the Nobel Peace Prize, because I don't know if he was nominated or he was going to be nominated, but he just straight out, he said, you know what, I'm going to decline if I get it. And this did happen. And for this, we thank him, because he saw this, and this is 2019. This is not
interesting. Yeah.
And then what we also learned is, as you can see here, there's this writer who actually was given the Nobel, not for the peace, but it was for the literature. And his name is Peter Handke. And he says what happened in Bosnia was not a genocide. So that means those people deserve to die. And then he was sponsored again by Nobel Peace Prize or Nobel Committee. So we see this. Now, what's also interesting is, now for those who already forgot, but just for the generation Z, they may not know, there was in the middle of Europe, there was a genocide happened in the 90s. And this was under the Milosevic's leadership. They killed thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. And this happened right in the middle of Europe.
Yeah.
So now, Peter Handke is not alone. So Adolf Hitler was nominated. Like, this is kind of like a joke, right? Now, Dr. Young, my biggest issue, also, let's not forget Mussolini and Stalin. Now, here's the problem that we have with Nobel Peace Prize Committee. They say, well, look, we cannot revoke something that we have given. Well, that's definitely certain words that I'm not able to say because we don't want to be picked up on YouTube. See, there's a censorship. So I can't freely say what I need to say, but you can just fill the blank, okay? It's the biggest BS, right? So now if you cannot reverse this, if Jeffrey Epstein was alive today and he did what he did, he just went to the jail and he got out of the jail, and then now he's living like a normal person, and then 1 year he did something really extraordinary. were they going to say, you know what happened in the past doesn't matter, so we are going to give him the award? Like that logic of, oh, well, you know, we did it for this work, but this person is killing someone else, but we didn't, you know, we don't care about that. It's almost like, how can you just separate them? How's that possible?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it is interesting, Kamal, because if you go through the book, Betrayal of the Nobel by Oni Turretini, you can see really that there are huge problems throughout the history of the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, if you think about it, actually, you would think that one of the people who deserved most would be Mahatma Gandhi, for instance, who really fought with the really principle of nonviolence, right? And yet he was nominated many times and never got it. And people suspect the reason was because the British at that time were very powerful in the world, and that they would not look upon Norway nicely if that were to happen. I mean, it's politics is involved. And to some extent, because we live in the real world, you could, understand the things. What is totally beyond belief and beyond consideration, Kamal, is that here we have somebody who comes to power without being elected, right? Was part of the security apparatus in Ethiopia, comes to power without no elections, has been a prime minister for barely a few months, right? He tells them he's going to make peace with this arch enemy of Ethiopia, which is the Eritrean dictator, who's a dictator, by the way, another unelected person, right? And as he is doing this, he is actively purging Tigrayan officials and politicians who are with him in the government, right? So he is focused on eliminating Tigrayan officials. Now, it's no secret that the Eritrean president hates the Tigrayan officials and politicians as well. In fact, when the president of Eritrea first heard that the Ethiopian prime minister was going to offer him peace by flying to Eritrea, he made a speech of acceptance, and he did not say, oh, great, both peoples are going to have peace. He said, game over for the TPLF. He said something in the lines of, oh, the TPLF will be completely eliminated. It may take us time, but this is the beginning of their end, which means that it was clear from the president of Eritrea's side that any peace deal with Ethiopia had to be concluded with the suppression of Tigray. That was the goal. The Nobel Institute should have had enough research to understand this and stay away from this, right? Yes, two parties are saying they are going to make peace, but if they are making peace in order to make an alliance to suppress a third party, that's not the kind of peace that Alfred Nobel advocated, right? But that's exactly what happened. So the 5 members, right? If all of 5 of them voted for Abiy Ahmed during that crucial vote in October 2018, all of them should reconsider their position. If not all of them voted, the ones who voted for Abiy Ahmed should reconsider their position, because their vote and their stamp of approval has had direct consequences on the people of Tigray. The thousands of Tigrayans who have been killed, are being tortured, and the ones who are about to die of hunger because Eritrean and Ethiopian troops are blocking it. The thousands of Eritrean refugees who've been violated in the place of sanctuary that they had in Tigray because of that peace deal, those people deserve at the minimum that kind of decency from the Nobel Committee. Come out. The Nobel Committee.
Let's just regroup, right? So you and I mean, this is something that we are sharing with the public, but you and I, we already reached out to a couple of the legal firms in the United States.
Yeah.
We reached out to some of the other authorities in different parts of the world. And regardless of what the result is going to be, because this is bothering us so much, and I feel like if we don't do what's right from our point, from our level, it would be irresponsible behavior from our side, and we won't let this go. So we may even have a trip to Norway to find a local
Absolutely.
law firm there. So we are going to sue them. So now this is not just like two guys talking about some issue casual. No, we are going to take a legal action against the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. What would be helpful is if they actually acknowledge their issues and acknowledge their mistakes and then say, look, we made a mistake. Just like we made a mistake with Henry Kissinger.
Yes.
Right? Just like we made the mistake with this guy, Peter Henke, whatever his name was. Just like any other people who shouldn't be on this list. But you can't just do stuff and not be responsible. You have responsibilities, you have obligations. This is for the committee members. You are not immune. So you have a great liability and responsibility to the to people like us everywhere in the world. There's this name, is like this is the brand. This is the Nike or Adidas or the Lacoste or the this is the name in the industry. So you are giving your name and you are blessing them. And then with your certification, they go and kill people. And no, this time they kill the family members. You know what? We are gonna spend our own money to go after you. So legally. So we don't have Dr. Young, if it was possible, I would talk to Abiy Ahmed personally and try to understand his issues. I mentioned this before, but people think that I was kidding, but I'm not kidding, because I want to understand what is happening in his world, because it must be devastating for him to be able to put his name on a genocide in 2021, and for us to do nothing is not an option. So we are going to make sure that people in the legal limits will pay the cost for their mistakes. That's not going to be let go. Now, this is our 5th session. You know, interesting enough, we do a lot of healthcare-related videos, but these, the first 4 videos, we reach out to 1 million people around the world.
Yeah, we do.
So, and then these are not like something that we can promote. So it just happens organically. So 1 million people, one way or the other, they saw what we have to say. And this needs to stop. Now, I do want a special thank again to Chris Coons. Well, I know him for almost 10, 12 years now. And I knew he was good, but I was extremely impressed with his ownership and his accountability from our point of view. And going there twice in the last 2 months, it's extremely important for him to understand this issue. And we do thank him again. We appreciate what he has done so far. Absolutely. And I know he's going to do more, but we are not going to let this go. Dr. Gao, I know we are about an hour now. I don't I didn't realize it was already that much. I don't know if you want to say any closing comments.
No, I just want to second what you said about Senator Coons. Really, he's been extremely active in this area. And obviously, as people who live in Delaware, we really are very proud of him and of what he is doing on behalf of those who don't have a voice. But as you correctly said, Kamal, what is happening right now in Tigray is unprecedented. There was an article in the National Geographic, of all places, that iconic magazine actually wrote a very chilling piece of what is happening there. And the title of their article was, I never knew hell until I saw it now, right? Referring to what a person said about what they saw in Tigray, right? So this is happening, and this is happening at the behest of somebody who was given the Nobel Peace Prize not too long ago, right? And the Nobel Peace Prize Committee really cannot stay in silence any longer. They cannot come out. They have to come up.
The committee has their hands are on those kids' blood.
I mean, that is an inevitable conclusion, Kamal, because their action was followed so soon by this devastating war in Tigray, Kamal. So they cannot escape that connection, Kamal. And if they have really any type of decency at this time, is really to disassociate themselves from that institution so that institution can continue to do what Alfred Nobel wanted it to do back in autumn of 1895 when he wrote his will and left his, his wealth to serve humanity in some fashion. But what the Nobel Committee did Peace Committee did in 2019 is not serving humanity. It's really hurting humanity.
We are not going to accept that anyway, Dr. Gasser. We are going to go out to the end and make sure that our voice will be heard and our action will have impact in the peoples of Tigray's future. And this is not going to stop here. Will be, again, our next step is filing our lawsuit. And that's the last thing that we want to do, but it doesn't seem like there will be any other options for us other than pursuing that. So, well, thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching this, and thank you for your interest. A lot of messages that I get, and we are extremely encouraged by the support. And thank you again. So we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kamal.